Hello everyone, welcome back to my Flosstube channel, which is a channel all about cross stitch. My name is Rosanna and you can find me on YouTube and on Instagram as brightanddusty. This is Flosstube number 27. I am closing in on my 2-year anniversary of Flosstube actually, which will be at the beginning of September. So I am up to 27 regular Flosstube episodes, which is crazy to think about. But it has been about a month since I've been back. And this is going to be a regular Flosstube, but then at the end I'm going to do a retreat recap of my first in-person cross-stitch retreat. I was lucky enough to go to Stitch North in Brampton, Ontario, Canada this past weekend. So I will talk about that experience as the last part of this video. So if you're not interested, you don't have to stick around for that. I will have to mention the retreat throughout because most of the stitching I did this month was in preparation for Stitch North. So I will be showing things that I was like working on in preparation for the retreat, but I won't actually talk about the retreat until after all that is done. So I guess I'll just get into it. I had 2 finishes and they are actually start and finish. You never saw them before. These are 2 things that I stitched specifically in preparation for Stitch North. One of them is an FFO. I don't have it anymore because I used it as my small for the smalls exchange. So that has been gifted, but I did shoot a little video a few weeks ago when I had finished it so that I would be able to insert it into the video. So I'm going to insert that right now. Okay, I have an FFO I want to show and I'm giving this one away, so I'm not going to be able to incorporate it into my next video, so I'm just making a separate little clip here. This is called Rustic Christmas by Shannon Designs. That is it's a pattern. It has like 3 mini patterns in it, so this is one of them. This is the bird. And here it is. So I stitched this on an 18 count Ada. I think it's Rustico. I just had it in my stash. I used 2 strands of DMC. I used beads from my stash. I backed it with this plaid fabric that I had. And then I made these 3 little pins to go with it. So that snowflake matches the snowflakes in the design. And yeah, I just turned it into this little pillow. It's really cute. I love it. This is going to be really hard to give away. But what I'm planning to do is to stitch the deer from that design for myself, and I think I'll probably finish it the same way, because this one just turned out so adorable. I really want one for myself now. So I'm gonna do the deer, and then maybe I'll do the tree. But this didn't take too long to stitch up. I believe in Pattern Keeper it had about 1,400 stitches, not including the beads. So yeah, it's got a lot of nice detail in there. So yeah, I'm going to Stitch North in October. By the time you're seeing this, it's already going to be over. And I made this because I wanted to participate in the smalls exchange. And at Stitch North, they tell you in the instructions, you know, you have to label the bag either modern or traditional. And that's pretty much the only requirement. So I'm just gonna label this traditional, and hopefully whoever picks it likes it. I think it turned out really, really cute. And I have this little bag that it's gonna fit in there. And then I'll probably just wrap it up in like a plain bag or something, and, you know, put traditional on there. But all right, that was my FFO. I also took a few photos outside, just in the sun, so you can see how colorful it is. So I'll insert those as well. All right, back to you, future Rosanna. Okay, so that was my small for the smalls exchange. That is a really pretty pattern. It turned out better than I was expecting. And I do hope that I will stitch the deer sometime soon. I really love that plaid border design that frames the animals. So yeah, highly recommend that pattern by Shannon Christine. It's on her website. So that was my FFO. My other finish was also a start and finish. It's another small. And this is what the design is. It's Pumpkin Pincushion by Jeannette Douglas Designs. Jeannette Douglas was the featured designer at Stitch North this past weekend. So I started this at the beginning of October because I wanted to be able to bring it to the retreat and work on it there. And I did end up finishing it. And it's pretty small, as you can see. I haven't turned it into a pincushion yet. Right now it's loose. But let me show you that finish. So I actually did a DMC conversion for this. The pattern is charted in Fancy Floss. So I looked up rough equivalents of what the DMC would be, and I just used that. I can probably put it in the description box in case anybody is interested in that conversion. There's not that many colors. But this turned out really, really cute. You can see there's even a few beads. There's 5 beads because there's 4 in that swirly design, and then there's an orange one in the center. And those are charted in the chart. I just picked beads that I had in my stash. So, yeah, really cute. This is a linen napkin that I have found thrifting. It was already this kind of neutral light green. It is a pretty high count napkin. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's probably like a 46. The squares were really tiny, but that's why it just looks so delicate and pretty. What else was I gonna say? Yeah, this napkin, you might be able to tell, like, my pumpkins are not as round as these ones. Mine are a little bit elongated because this is not technically an even weave. The weave of it is a little bit more rectangular than it is square. And I knew that going into it. you know, pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes, so I wasn't bothered by that. So that's why, as you can see, it's like a little bit more oval in shape rather than a circle. And then those pumpkins are a little elongated. But yeah. But this was a really nice napkin. It was really nice to stitch it. The feel of it, the tension was really good. So I'm happy with it. I think it'll still make a delightful pincushion. Even though this isn't technically an even weave. So that was, oh, before the retreat, I had stitched almost all of it. I left one of the pumpkins empty. I think I have a picture of that. I did that on purpose because like I wanted to finish it while I was at the retreat. So now I have this, you know, as a commemoration of my first ever cross stitch retreat. Okay, let me put that one aside. Those were my finishes. Then I'll do WIPs. So this first WIP you've seen a lot. This is the Gatherin by Plum Street Samplers. I did work on this at the retreat. And this is also one that I oftentimes will work on in the evenings at home when I'm watching TV, because I stitch in hand with it. Oh man, my hair is everywhere. I stitch in hand with this one, so it's just convenient to be able to take it wherever, or stitch in kind of odd places or what have you, because I don't have to have a frame or anything. Yeah, so as you can see, finally, that house is completely filled in, including the windows and stuff. Right now I'm working on doing this carriage, and then I'll do all the stars and the flowers, and then it'll basically be finished. And I'm only gonna do a couple rows of grass. Okay, so yeah, I don't really have much to say about this. You've seen it a bunch of times. I am looking forward to it being done. And that's an 18 count Rustico Ada. And then these other two WIPs were ones I specifically pulled out because I was going to this retreat and I wanted something easy that I wouldn't have to pay much attention to a chart. I could just have conversations and not get lost in a pattern or have to do a lot of frogging. That was my rationale for these ones. So I guess the first one I can show is called the Hallow Game Board by the Primitive Needle. This is the one with the checkerboard and then the witches and the pumpkins on the top and the bottom. So I worked on this a lot at the retreat. Whoops. And I am in the checkerboard area. What I did was, prior to the retreat, I copied Stephanie from Cross Stitch the Globe. In one of her videos, she showed that she did this middle diagonal line. Or these squares, these orange squares in the middle, she did all those first because when you do that, you have the whole width of it and you have the whole length of it, and you don't have to look at a pattern at all. So I totally copied that idea. It was a really good idea. I stitched all these orange squares in the middle prior to the retreat. And then at the retreat itself, I was just working on building off of that diagonal line. And I got a lot done on this at the retreat. I think it was 1900 stitches. And granted, it's all straight lines, it's all squares, it's not hard. So that's why I was able to, you know, go pretty fast. But this was the main thing I was working on at the retreat. And then I would also pull out the Gatherin when I got tired of this. And I finished that pumpkin. So yeah, this is looking great. This fabric, it's a picture of this plus, and it's I think it's a 36 count. I'm using one strand. I don't remember if this is Heritage, maybe. I'll try to put it in the description box. I kind of forget what it's called now. But it looks really good. Okay, so that was the Primitive Needle Hallow Game Board. I'm using the called for. It's just two, I think it's Gentle Art. It is Black Coffee and Fallen Leaves by Classic Colorworks. So it's just two colors. Oh yes, and also prior to the retreat, I made a new project bag because I knew I was going to want to bring a bunch of projects and I wanted them to fit in this bag. So I made this giant cat Halloween project bag. And yeah, it's really, really cute. So that was my second WIP. I have one more WIP. This one this is just a sign of how much I over prepare for stuff, to the extent that it probably becomes very annoying for everyone around me. But I was really nervous about going to my first retreat, so I really over prepared. You know, I prepped that Hallow Game Board, and that would have been enough. I really didn't need to do any more than that. But I was just like, well, what if I get bored of it? You know, what if I don't want to work on it? So the other thing I did was I prepped this. This is Mistletoe Manor by Pansy Patch. And as you can see, there is a very big poinsettia border. And I had basically nothing done on this as of 3 weeks ago. I had one flower. I had one single flower in that border, and that was it. So I had a very pathetic start on this. But I pulled it out. I said, okay, I'm going to get this one ready for retreat stitching. And I'm going to get that border. So here's what I did. I did the main vine in that border. It's green. And I went all the way around, and it actually did meet up. Yeah, I was really afraid it wasn't going to, but it did. Because my thought was, well, if I have that vine completely done, then I could just add flowers. And once you stitch one of them, you know, you're gonna know what the pattern for it is. You're not gonna have to be looking at the pattern constantly. And my thought was, I'll just fill in flowers at the retreat. that didn't end up happening because I was really just like fine working on this, the Hallow Game Board, because I was chatting with table mates, you know, I was doing this, I was doing that, and I didn't mind just stitching a bunch of squares. I was totally fine with that. And they have to get stitched eventually, you know, I'm gonna have to stitch all those squares one way or another, so may as well do it at the retreat. So I didn't end up adding any flowers to this, but the nice thing is that now this border is ready and I can just add flowers to that border anytime I want. And I could even start doing the house now, because I can build it off of that vine. All right. So this is a 40 count linen. It's called Autumn Blush, which I got from Needlework with Jim on Etsy. It's a very pretty light pink. I really like it. And I am using the called for Valdani flosses for this design. And I'm keeping this project in my Teresa Kogut fabric bag that I made last year. So I love this bag. It's so cute. So that was all my WIPs. I do have 2 new starts that I can talk about quickly. These were not for the retreat. This was like the only non-retreat stitching I did this month, was getting 2 things started. So the first one is Honey Magic, which is a Ukrainian design that I bought from uniquestitch.com. I talked about it probably 2 videos ago if you're curious, but I can put that website in the description box. So I didn't get much started here, but I got the top of that crystal ball. I got it going, so at least it started. This is a 28 count opalescent Lugana. I don't know what the color is. This was one I had gotten from an estate sale. I'm not really sure, but I think it's gonna look really nice with all the purples. So yeah, that pattern is not very big. I could probably do this in a weekend if I really put my mind to it. But yeah, we're coming upon like Christmas stitching, at least for me. So I'm not sure at what point I'm gonna pull this out again. But at least it started. So my other start, I mentioned I was hoping to start it last time. This is a Riolis kit. So this is Love Story Empathy. And this is kitted with cotton floss. This is not one of the wool acrylics. So that's what it's going to look like. And I don't have much done. You can sort of get a sense. This is his arm. I did a center start, and this is his arm is starting to take shape here. But yeah, again, it's not much. And I switched out. I decided I don't want to use the Kit Ada. Usually I don't want to use the Kit Ada. So I just pulled a 32 count Zweigart cream linen that I had in my stash. And so far, it's looking great. Okay, so I think that covers WIPs and new starts. Why don't I do my Save the Stitch segment, and then I'll get into talking about the retreat. Okay, so I pulled 2 framed Save the Stitches. This first one, I've had this for a long time. It hangs up in my kitchen. I just never managed to get around to show it. But since it's fall, this is a really good one for fall. So I looked it up. It's a kit. It's called Cider and Cinnamon by Dimensions. This is one of those no count Dimensions kits. So the design is printed. Well, it's actually not the whole design. It's like the outline. The outline is printed onto the Ada, and then whoever stitched it, you just go in and you fill in all those areas with the right color. And when I looked it up, I was pretty shocked. I had always assumed this was just a regular counted cross stitch, but no, it's a no count. And then last night I was examining it, and if you look really, really close, you can see a little bit of the printed outline showing through. But you have to be really looking for it. You can't see it when you're just looking at it regularly on the wall. So this is very pretty, very appropriate for fall. In upstate New York, of course, you know, there's all kinds of apple cider themed things. We got apple cider donuts. They're delicious. But yeah, New York is known for its apples, I guess. So this is perfect for our kitchen. And this is the frame that I found it in. I didn't mess with it. It looks like a professional frame and matte, but yeah, it's really pretty. And the blue coordinates with that pie pan, which is really nice. Okay, so that was the first one. Now I have a really big one and kind of a unusual one. Let me hold it up as best I can. So I found this months ago. I found it for $5 at one of the thrift stores around here. I saw it hanging up on the wall, and I did a double take. I was like, is that cross stitch? And it is. And as you can see, like me just holding it here, it's gigantic. I want to say that this would basically be like stitching a Mirabilia. It's so big. And the subject matter, I have never in my life encountered a cross stitch that looks like this. It's just it seems very odd to me. I looked up all the information about this. So first of all, the pattern is called America's Goat Man. So this is one of those color charts brand, and it's from 1991. Charted by Larry Martin. This man in the cross stitch, he is based on a real person named Ches McCartney. So if you want to spend an entertaining 10 minutes, I would suggest going to read the Wikipedia article about this guy. Ches McCartney. He traveled the United States, like 60s, 70s, and then I believe he stopped in the mid-80s. He would travel around with this cart that was pulled by goats. So he was known as the Goat Man. This little saying down here: along the road, I met a grizzled old man who tended his goats and made his own special way through life. So, isn't that so interesting? This is stitched on a 14 count Rustico Ada. And on the back, the stitcher had actually signed her name. Her name was Dorothy, and she stitched this in 1996. She dated it. So yeah, this is just so big. And yeah. So I don't know if you found that as interesting as I did, but I really went down the rabbit hole looking up information about this guy. He led a very interesting life. And I think the Wikipedia article said that he stopped his itinerant goat travels sometime in the mid-80s. And it said that the roads were kind of getting a little bit too dangerous. And he had to stop. I think he was also quite old, though. Okay. So that was Save the Stitch. All right, I'm gonna reorganize a little bit, and then I will be back in a flash to talk about my first retreat. Okay, so part of my retreat recap is going to be haul, but I think I'll just leave that until the very, very last thing. And then the rest of it is just going to be me talking about my experience and what I did to prepare. So the other thing is I basically took no pictures. Like, I took a picture of a geese crossing sign because I was in Canada and I thought it was really cute. But other than that, I did not really take photos or video, so this is not going to be one of those beautiful vlog style recaps. But I will just share, since this was my very first in-person retreat and I was quite nervous for it, I'll just talk about, I guess, my expectations, and then, you know, what kind of ended up happening and how it went. Just right off the bat, I'll say that I had an amazing time. It totally blew away all my expectations, and I will definitely be going again. So just as an initial, I guess, I give it a 5-star review, 5 out of 5. Stitch North was really awesome. But yeah, it was my first retreat, and I did a lot of preparing for it just in terms of all that pre-stitching I showed you. This retreat is also in Canada, which means I was going to be crossing an international border to get there and to get back. So I did some, you know, preparations for getting ready to do that, go to a different country. I live in upstate New York, so if you look at Google Maps, it's only about 3.5 hours on Google Maps to get from where I live to get to Brampton, where the retreat was. And that doesn't take into account stops or traffic or, you know, crossing the border where you have to sit in your car in a line for a while. So yeah, it definitely takes more like 4 hours, realistically, 4.5, depending on stops and all that. So yeah, from a time investment standpoint, that's really not bad for a retreat. That is pretty much the closest one to me, with the exception of, I know that Hobby House does some retreats too. Hobby House is a lot closer to me, but you know, I haven't really investigated their retreats at this point. So yeah, Stitch North is pretty much the most accessible large cross-stitch retreat that is available to me. So, right, like all through October, I was preparing for it. I was really nervous about it. I didn't personally know anyone who was going. So I was going into this retreat totally cold. Like, I wasn't gonna know anyone. I wasn't gonna have anyone to sit with. It was all just, I had to be brave and I had to meet new people and I had to just commit to that going into it. And it's not always easy for me to try new things. So I was really nervous. In the weeks leading up to it, I was talking about it a lot. My husband Andrew was hearing all about my preparations. So mostly it was the pre-stitching, as I said. Okay, so I was leaving for Stitch North on Thursday because the retreat starts on Friday, but I wanted to get there the night before and settle into the hotel. So I was leaving on a Thursday. Wednesday, during the day, my husband texts me. He's like, well, we should go out to dinner tonight. You're going away for the weekend. Let's go out to dinner. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So we get in the car and he drives me to the next town over to go to this really nice Mexican restaurant, which we only do this on special occasions. Because usually we just go like somewhere close by. So we drive 25 minutes, or not 25, 20 minutes down the road to this Mexican restaurant. And it's a Wednesday. This is a Wednesday night. I'm sitting in this restaurant looking around and I'm just like, I feel like I'm being shipped off to the army or something. I was like, Andrew, you do realize we're going to see each other in 3 days. But I think he just knew that I was kind of anxious, and that it was a really big deal for me to be going on this adventure. So he wanted to give me a big send-off the night before, which was very sweet. So that was Wednesday night. Thursday, I wasn't going to be able to check into the hotel until 3 anyway. So I didn't have to like rush around in the morning. I left probably around 11:30. I did make a couple of stops on the way. To get to Canada in that direction, basically I was driving toward Buffalo on I-90. And I stopped in a town called Batavia because I looked up, there was a couple of thrift shops there. I was like, okay, I'm just going to stop there. It's on the way. I'm going to want to break anyway. I'll stop there and hit those 2 thrift stores just to see if I find anything cool. So this is a little haul interruption here. It'll be very fast. But I stopped at those thrift stores. I found a couple things. So first of all, I found one of these pipe holders. Vintage pipe holder. They spin. And there's that jar in the middle. So, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Because what I'm thinking is Janine McGowan's Jingle Ball class with the carousel. I actually already bought it because after I found this on the way to Stitch North, I bought the PDF for the Blue Flower, her Jingle Ball class, because I'm going to stitch those animals and turn this into a carousel. So that was pretty lucky. I mean, this is really beat up. I think I'm gonna paint it. The top of it doesn't look great. You can see some stains. And there is actually a crack too. I'm gonna have to put some wood glue in there. But for $5.99, I saw it there and I almost left it. I was like, that's kind of junky, like it looks pretty beat up. But then I just thought, you know, for $5.99, I'm not gonna find one any cheaper than that. So I did buy it, and I'm gonna do the Blue Flowers Jingle Ball class. So that was one fun piece of haul from those 2 thrift shops in Batavia. The other things I found some cross stitch. Somebody had clearly donated a small stash, and I found this, the Hummingbird and Cactus, which I'm definitely planning to stitch. I love hummingbirds. So it came with the thread, no fabric. And then there was this kit as well. Flowers in Tall Vase by Dimensions. Very beautiful colors. It had all the thread, but it didn't have the fabric. And then the rest of the patterns I just found some random ones, and I actually ended up putting a bunch of them on the freebie table at Stitch North, because I didn't think I was going to stitch them. But that little trip to Batavia ended up being worth it for sure. So, okay, end of haul interlude. So I went through the border without incident. The line was really short on the way through because it was a Thursday. It was like a Thursday, probably, I don't know, 2 o'clock. So the line was not very long. I didn't have any trouble with that. And then I was on the highway to Brampton. Yeah, the first night I didn't do much. I hung out in my hotel room. I ventured out to get dinner. But I was just kind of watching TV, and, you know, I was pretty anxious for the next morning, so I just wanted to relax. And then Friday morning rolls around, and as I said, I wasn't going to know anybody, so I think everybody has that, you know, you're entering that high school cafeteria moment where you're entering a room full of people and you don't know anyone and you don't know who you're going to sit with. And I was quite nervous on Friday morning. The doors opened at 8, and I just kind of hung out in my room until maybe like 8:45. Because I figured I'd give everyone else a chance to just find where they're sitting, and then I would find an empty spot. So that's what I did. And I walked in, I was really disoriented, like there wasn't really a registration table to sign in or anything. So I was kind of wandering around aimlessly for a couple minutes. And I asked someone, I was like, is there a registration table? And they were like, no, just grab a seat. So that's what I did. And yeah, I was also carrying all of this stuff because I didn't know what the schedule was going to be. I didn't know like if I needed my small for the smalls exchange at that point or what was happening. So I basically just was carrying everything with me. I probably looked a little nuts, but I didn't know what was going on. So I just wandered around for a couple minutes, and then I stumbled upon a table, and they invited me to sit with them. There were 4 ladies there, Kennedy, Wendy, Karen, and Rhea. So I made the 5th. So it was just the 5 of us for a few hours. And then in the afternoon segment, we were joined by 2 others, Giselle and Janelle. So we ended up having a table of 7, which I believe was the maximum. That seemed to be like what the tables would fit. And this table ended up being really awesome. All of the people at my table were from Canada. I was the only American at the table. But everyone was super nice, and yeah, we had a great time for the weekend. And everyone was working on different style projects. You know, since this was a designer specific event, I wasn't sure, like, well, are you supposed to be working on something by Jeannette Douglas, like, at least part of the time? Like, does anybody care about that? And the answer is no, nobody cares at all. You can work on whatever you want. Everyone was working on lots of different projects. One of the stitchers at our table, Ria, she was working on, what is this called? Rose of Sharon by Mirabilia. I've had this pattern in my stash for a while. She was working on this. The amazing thing was that she was doing it 1/1 on a 30 count linen. I cannot describe to you how delicate and exquisite and stunning her WIP was. She was almost done with the lady. So you can really get a good sense of what this was going to look like. It was gorgeous. And people would be wandering around the ballroom kind of looking at other stitchers' projects, and throughout the course of Friday there were a bunch of people who would kind of be peeking at our table and notice this, and it was creating some buzz. 'Cause there were a few people who stopped by and were like, wow, this is Mirabilia and you're doing it over 1, and wow, isn't that so beautiful? This happened several times. And then later on in the day, I look over my shoulder and I see Jeannette Douglas standing there. And she was like, I was told that I had to come over here and see the Mirabilia that someone at this table is working on. So Jeannette Douglas was the featured designer, and I was just like, wow, yeah. That is how impressive this WIP looked. I want to do a Mirabilia like that over 1. I know that it would be very difficult. It would probably take forever, but I pulled this one from my stash and I'm like, just today. And I was thinking, I think this would work, because the tricky thing is that you don't want to pick one that has beads, or at least not a lot of beads. And this one doesn't have any beads. Yeah, it has some blending filament, but I don't see any beads here. This one's called My Lady's Garden. So I am seriously considering doing this 1/1 like Ria was doing, because after seeing her WIP, I want one. I want one that's gonna look like that. So she was also stitching a long dog sampler on a 56 count using sewing thread 1/2. It was so petite and so cute. So yeah, she had some amazing projects. So that was my table. It was a great table. I feel really lucky that that they invited me to sit with them. So after that, I mean, I think that was probably the #1 thing I was worried about, was just like finding somewhere to sit. And, you know, after that part was over, my nerves really started to settle down. I relaxed, you know, I was feeling a lot more at ease. So yeah, that was Friday. Saturday was when there were a lot of little activities going on. So we did the smalls exchange. Saturday morning. So that's when, you know, if you chose to participate and you stitched a small, you wrap it up in a bag, and you put it on the table with all the other smalls, and then they call you up by table to go pick one. So yeah, I ended up putting mine in a little bit of a Christmassy bag, because even though that bird pillow was more like wintry with the snowflakes, it did definitely have a little bit of a Christmas vibe. So I put it in a Christmas bag just so people would know that it was like holiday. So the smalls exchange happened, and how should I tell this story? So I go up there, I pick a small. I decided to pick one that said traditional. The one that I put on the table, I had written traditional on there, so I picked one that was traditional. I got back to my table, and I unwrapped this beautiful needle book. With this incredible fabric. So this is sewn together just so beautifully. There's a couple of charms here, and there's a tiny scissors, and scissors are attached to the needle book. And this is from a Jeannette Douglas design. I forget which one, but it says Stitch North, October 2025. So this is the cutest thing ever. I absolutely love it. And the lady who had stitched this small had put her table number and her name in the bag. I actually didn't really know that you were supposed to do that. I had put my name in there, but I didn't put my table number in there. So next time I'll know that you can do that. But so I knew where she was, and I went over to find her so I could thank her for this beautiful needle book. So I introduced myself. I was like, hi, I got your small. My name is Rosanna, and I am from upstate New York. And as soon as I said the name Rosanna, she did kind of a double take. And then she pulled, next to her chair, she pulled up the bag that had my small in it. So we had picked each other's smalls just by total coincidence. It was very strange, because there had to be like at least 100 smalls on that table. So somehow we had picked each other's. So she went home with my bird, and I went home with the needle book. So that was really fun. And yeah, I said to my table mates, I was like, well, it must have been destiny. It had to be destiny, because what are the odds? But she was from Canada, and I didn't notice this at first. This was also with my small that she prepared. And I believe that this is also handmade. It's a little pouch, and you can see that it's quilted. So this is also so beautiful. And yes, I was completely delighted by this smalls exchange. You know, as long as time permits and I'm able to prepare a small, I would definitely always want to participate. That was a great experience. So yes, the lady who stitched my small, her name is Allison, and yeah, and it's beautiful. Okay, so that was a smalls exchange. After that, it was the freebie table, because after the smalls are cleared out, then that table, that area, they use it for the freebie table. So the idea of the freebie table is that people, if they have things in their stash that they're not going to use anymore, they don't want, patterns, fabric, you can put it on the freebie table, and then it is basically a free-for-all. Everyone's over there crowding it to see if they can score some patterns. So the thing I will say about the freebie table is I knew this was going to be happening, and I have a lot of stash, as you know, from thrifting, from estate sales. So in the week prior to Stitch North, I went through my stash. I pulled a bunch of kits, a bunch of patterns. I stuffed them in this bag because I was driving to Stitch North. So I didn't have to worry about things fitting in like airline luggage. I could just throw everything in my car. So I brought a bunch of stuff to put on the freebie table just because I have a lot that I'm not gonna stitch. And yeah, so I put a bunch of stuff on the freebie table, and then I also took some things. I wonder if that should be my transition into haul. Actually, before I do that, I want to show the table gifts that I got. I also made some table gifts. Why don't I insert that little clip right here? I'll show you what I made. So let me do that, and then I'll talk about the ones that I received. So I'm going to Stitch North this weekend. It will be my first ever in-person retreat. So I decided to go ahead and make some table gifts along with my small for the smalls exchange. And just in case anyone was curious, because I was kind of, having some trouble coming up with ideas. But here is what I came up with. I had these ornament blanks, so they just fit together. And they turn into an ornament that you can fill with whatever. I used some shiny, like, star paper on the inside. And then I filled them with a skein of variegated DMC, a little container of beads, and zipper pull. Yeah, I had made these a long time ago, so I just added the zipper pull, and then I think they'll work really well for project bags. Yeah, I had like a bunch of different designs. It's just a bottle cap. So all that stuff fit into the ornament blank. And then what I'm going to do, or what I did with this one, I'm going to do the rest of them, is add a wooden spool and just tie it with that ribbon, because I have some empty wooden spools, and these come in handy sometimes as finishing accessories. So I figured I would just tie one to each of the ornaments. So these ornaments, yeah, you could use them for Christmas, but you could also use them for like Halloween or whatever and put whatever you want in there. So I just thought that was kind of a cool idea for my first in-person retreat. All right, thanks. All right, so those are the table gifts I made. Table gifts are not like a requirement when you're going to a retreat. There is no pressure to bring table gifts, but I just thought it was a fun thing to do. And I already had those little plastic ornament things, so they were pretty easy to whip up. And I'll show you, I got some table gifts as well. So I got this beautiful needle minder from Giselle. And it is a Luna moth. And she made these. So this one, I want to use when I'm working on my Moth Along project, because it coordinates perfectly. And then Wendy at our table gave us needle minder from Caterpillar Cross Stitch. So this is beautiful beach houses. And there were other snacks and goodies that she gave us in this little pouch here. So that was just so sweet and generous. And Ria gave us this pack with a piece of fabric. I got a bunny needle minder here. Oh, can't really see. There we go. Really cute. And some Magnifica beads and a Petite Treasure braid and some more beads. So this was wrapped up so nice. I don't want to open it. It's just too cute. And then someone had come through and put these little snacks on the table. I don't actually know who that was because I was elsewhere when that happened, but whoever that was, thank you so much for these delightful little snacks. I can't wait to eat these. Okay, so those were table gifts, and everyone was just so generous and thoughtful, and I'm gonna look forward to using all of those beautiful things. So I will transition into haul. I guess the last thing, before I do haul, because I know some people don't want to hang around for that, the last thing I'll say about Stitch North was obviously there is a ton of work that goes into putting on a complicated event like that. So, you know, Evertote, who runs the retreat, I was so impressed by all of the effort that they put into it and all of the things they have for us to do. And because Jeannette Douglas was the featured designer, you know, she would do some lectures, and that was really nice. And it was just a really fun time, and yeah, I had so much more fun than I was even expecting. So I definitely want to go back. I also want to just put it out to the universe. Like, thank you to all those vendors who took their weekend to set up booths at the retreat so that we could buy fabric, project bags, accessories. I used to do the craft show circuit in New York State and Pennsylvania. I did that for about 3 years. I was traveling around all over the place selling handmade jewelry at craft shows. So I know the kind of effort that goes into doing that and setting up a booth, sitting there all day, you know, fingers crossed you're going to make enough money to make it worth it, all that kind of thing. It can be a pretty stressful lifestyle. So I really appreciate all the vendors who put the time in to make this a really special event for all of us. Okay, I think I covered what I wanted to cover about the experience, and now I'll show you my haul. So if you don't want to see that, you're not going to miss anything. Why don't I show I bought some Jeannette Douglas patterns. I'll show those first, because she had designed 2 for the retreat itself. One of them is Happy Autumn. This is the one, I had actually pre-ordered this, because again, I didn't know what the situation was going to be. Like, I didn't know, like, can you buy it there? Do you have to pre-order it? Like, what's the story? So I had pre-ordered this because I just wanted to make sure I got it. And I picked it up at the retreat. So I did a DMC conversion for this. And I'm hoping to start it soon. Very cute. The other one she designed specifically for the retreat was a band sampler. I didn't buy this one in advance because I was like, I'm not really a band sampler person. And I was like, oh, I'm happy with the other one. But then when I got to the retreat, they had the model sitting out. It was this tiny, cute, adorable banner. And I was like, oh. Now I have to stitch it. Because I think if you do it on a 36 or a 40 count, it is going to turn out really small and really, really cute. So I bought this one while I was there. The last one I bought was this. This is an older design by Jeannette Douglas. I think it's 2015. Yeah. So it's called Oh Canada True North Strong. And I got this because this is my first time going to Stitch North. It wasn't technically my first time in Canada, but you know, I wanted something that was going to remind me of my trip to Canada, and this was perfect. And those animals and those trees are really cute. So I bought this one. Yeah, this was not like an exclusive. This one, I'm pretty sure you can buy it wherever. And it was from 2015. So those were the 3 Jeannette Douglas patterns I bought while I was there. And I bought 2 pieces of fabric from Hand Dyed by Rolanda. Her fabrics are absolutely gorgeous, and you know, I've never had the opportunity to get any prior to this, so I bought 2. There's this 32 count opalescent Lugana. Yeah, I don't have any specific plans for it yet, but I do use a lot of opalescent Lugana. I use it for Mirabilias, various other things. I do like it. The other one I got is a 40 count linen. And yeah, it's like really colorful. It's green and blue, very oceany. So yeah, 40 count linen. I don't really know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. So yeah, those were the things that I bought. And then I can show you some of the stuff I got from the freebie table. So let's see. Most of the stuff I got on the freebie table is vintage, I think, but I did get a modern heartstring samplery. Fenniskull Hall, 1824. So this is not a reproduction, it's an original design. I saw the model at Hobby House over the summer, and I instantly fell in love with it. Like, I don't think it's my usual style, but when you see that model and how beautiful it is, you know. So I want to change the names up here to be Andrew and me. And I want to get the called for floss because I think this grassy area is not going to make any sense unless you're using the called for. But yeah, I was really happy to grab this off the freebie table. I'm definitely going to stitch this at some point. All right, now I'll show you. So I have a lot of these angels, but this one I did not have. Marbeck Byzantine Angel. I wanted this one. It's so cool. So I grabbed that. Somebody was getting rid of Teresa Wensler rocking horses. I would love to do this Christmas one. but they're all really pretty. This one, I was so excited. Dragon Dreams. Why hoard gold when you can hoard chocolate? I've been trying to hunt this one down. It's kind of hard to find, so I definitely grabbed this. And there was another one there with it. Celestial Wings. Black Swan Designs, which I collect. I don't have this one. I love it. Then let's see. Yeah, I grabbed this because there you can, if you want the information, there it is. But I grabbed this because there is this Hummingbird one up here. And it doesn't look that big. And if you look closely, there's a tiny, tiny hummingbird sitting there on that branch. It's so cute. So I got this for the hummingbirds. And then this was Perman of Copenhagen. Like a floral sampler. I thought that was really pretty. Somebody put a ton of magazines. I mean, I think it was like an entire magazine collection. Most of them went pretty fast because there was a bunch of cross-stitcher that wasn't that old. And those got snapped up pretty quickly. But there were a couple of Christmas ornament magazines that I got. They're older, but there's some cool stuff in here. This is one of those old Lakewood designs, but this little basket of kitties, I would almost be tempted to stitch that separately, but this is a nice fall chart. This is very similar to one of those like Butternut Road, Told in a Garden. Yeah, it looks a lot like it. And then this is just the pattern. But I don't mind kidding myself. I have a lot of DMC, so I grabbed this. Cozy Cove by Charles Wysocki. Yeah, I did grab one of the cross stitchers. Actually, this one reappeared. I don't know if someone maybe grabbed it and they decided they didn't want it, but it reappeared and I got it. It's a Christmas winter edition, so I'm excited about that. And then there was a giant stack of these great big graphs. I just pulled this one because it has a pink house, which I really like. Okay, so I think that covers my haul. I had a lot of fun at the freebie table. I mean, for someone who, you know, I like the vintage patterns, and finding those dragons was really exciting for me. So the next time I go to Stitch North, I'll definitely just bring a bunch of stuff for the freebie table again, because I always accumulate too many patterns and kits, and that's a good way. I went back on Sunday morning before the retreat was over. I went back to the freebie table because I was like, I want to see, you know, if the stuff I put on here, was it taken? You know, it just seemed like useful information. Like, what do people like? What do people don't like? Most of the things I brought did get taken. There was a few. You know, I have a giant collection of Paul Yvonne that I got from an estate sale. Paul Yvonne patterns. I had brought a bunch of them to the freebie table. And a lot of them were claimed, but some of the very, very sentimental ones, nobody was interested in those. So those were kind of lingering. But yeah, most of the stuff I brought did find a good home. So I was really happy to see that. And yeah, I feel really lucky that I got the chance to go to an in-person retreat and meet a bunch of new people, participate in all of these fun activities. It was a really good time. So the rumors are true. Cross-stitch retreats are a lot of fun, and if you ever get the chance, you know, I'd highly recommend trying it out. Because I was very nervous going into it. I was afraid that either it was going to be kind of boring or I was going to be overwhelmed and, you know, anxious. But all of my fears were unfounded. It turned out to be a really great time. So I think I'm looking around. That was a lot of stuff. But yeah, I think I covered everything. So thank you so much if you made it this far and listened to my retreat recap. My next, I think I might do a flip through video in a few weeks because I found like a stash of patterns. Actually, I found it at Goodwill, but someone had donated what was clearly an entire collection of somebody's cross-stitch patterns. And the interesting thing was that this person had collected sampler patterns from the 80s. So they were samplers, like houses and alphabets and all that kind of stuff, but they were older. So this person was into samplers before samplers were cool. And I just thought some people might find it kind of interesting to see those older sampler patterns, designs from the 1980s. There was other stuff in there too. There was Prairie Schooler, Cricket Collection, Christmas stuff. So I was thinking of maybe doing a flip through of those, if anyone wants to see that. But other than that, it'll probably be like a month before I'm back for another Flosstube. And I'm getting into Christmas stitching. I am planning to stitch Christmas Elegance, make a lot more progress on that during Nora November, because I would like to get a big chunk out of that as my Christmas focus, I think. So hopefully I'll have some progress to show next time. And until then, happy stitching. Bye.